Yeah, so good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting of Cheltenham Borough Council's Cabinet. My name is Councillor Rowena Hay and I'm leader of the council. We don't actually have any members of the public watching the live stream, or we might do have people watching the live stream, but we don't actually have members of the public here. We do welcome Carmelo from the Gloucestershire Live. So there is CCTV recording and is in operation in the foyers and the public gallery. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if there is one, please everybody respond accordingly and go to the nearest exits. I do have some apologies for today. I have apologies from Councillor Clucas, Lewis and Atherstone for today's meeting. Does any member have any declarations of interest to make? No? The minutes of the last meeting that we had in December, on the 16th of December, those will be approved at our next Cabinet meeting. We don't have any public member or member questions, and we have nothing, or petitions, and we have nothing referred from the Council, Scrutiny or any other committee. So that leads us on to our single item, really, report for today, which is the General Fund Revenue and Capital Interim Budget Proposals for 26-27, and this is for us to approve to go out for consultation. So can I invite Councillor Jeffries to present?
Thank you, Leader. Colleagues, firstly, my apologies for the delay in the budget consultation, as mentioned at our last Cabinet meeting. For reasons only known to the Government, our financial settlement statement from them was delayed. Equally, there are adjustments to our funding formula. They've seen more changes than I've seen ever in my time in local government. This has meant an extraordinary amount of work for the finance team, and some of this work will continue right up until the final budget proposals. So, what we are witnessing, I think, is the transfer of the burden of funding from government to local taxpayers in this 3-year settlement we've had. Very interesting read if you delve into the detail. And while some may argue that's a good thing, you know, local taxation raised locally and have local accountability, sadly there are a whole host of limitations. We haven't got the freedom that we necessarily like as Liberals. So there's too many to discuss at today's meeting, clearly. But for context, this 3-year settlement, nationally, district councils saw a rise in funding of 0.6%. That's nationally. So that's effectively a real terms cut in funding. Thank you, Mr. Starmer. The other elephant in the room, which the government has let in, is effectively local government reform. And as yet, we do not have the definitive figures in terms of what this is going to cost Cheltenham taxpayers. It's likely to be somewhere around the £2 million mark, something, again, we haven't yet been able to factor into our budgets because we don't know as yet. So the government on a real good wicket here so far. Anyway, colleagues, I've just pushed my keyboard far too far. You'll be able to read in the reports, I suppose, all the reports, especially the Q2 figures that I brought at the last Cabinet meeting. But you'll be able to read the amount of funding from government has reduced. And our current figure to balance the budget stands at £1.171 million and change. Protecting frontline services and protecting our most vulnerable residents will be our priority. So in the coming weeks, we'll be reviewing quite a host of things to close that funding gap, like we do and have done for many years now. That'll be taking a risk-based level to our general balances. We'll be reviewing our earmarked reserves. There's a capital programme and the capital financing costs of that programme we can obviously look into. There's a whole host of reviews that will be underway in the coming weeks and days and weeks, so we can close that gap. The funding gap is an issue, and it's something we're going to have to grapple with, as I say, in the coming weeks and days. But just want to reiterate, this is about protecting services, as we've done over many years now in Cheltenham. We seem to be getting more and more used to this protecting services, but also about supporting our vulnerable residents. I had hoped that having a 3-year settlement would be a good thing. It seems it's a double-edged sword. of many years of austerity from previous governments, and now we've got a different kind of austerity. But we faced these challenges before in Cheltenham, and we will continue to do so. As leaders mentioned, colleagues, this is the draft budget for consultation. I'm happy to take any questions, but I hope you'll be supportive. Thank you, Leader.
Any member like to comment? Councillor Telford.
Forgive me, Alicia's not here, so I thought I'd do a bit of a dig. I think it's very disappointing how late in the day the government published all of these figures. So first, I just want to say obviously a massive thank you to John Whitlock, Jason, Pete, and all of the people in the finance team for all the work they've done over the last week to make sure that this could be delivered here, and our consultation is at least something that residents can engage in without the numbers being complete nonsense. I think that's really important. But the fact that our funding from national government is going down year on year when things continue to cost more and more is quite frankly appalling, to be honest. I think they're putting the burden on us, and that makes it so much more challenging. And while we are a well-run council and we have good finances, I imagine that's not going to be the case everywhere, and it's probably going to push quite a few councils under. And then they'll end up having to foot the bill for that, which in the end, it's going to cost so much more in the long run. So it feels like Merry Christmas from the Labour government. Your gift is coal, which would probably actually be more valuable, but wouldn't really meet our climate ambitions if the gift was actually coal. But I do welcome residents' thoughts on this consultation, because I think it's important that they engage with it, because at the end of the day, it's their town, it's their council. And I look forward to getting stuck in the new year so we can have discussions on how we protect all of our important services, whether they're mandatory stuff that we have to do or the discretionary stuff that I'm always proud that we deliver. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to Councillor Jeffries and to the finance team for putting this together in a very short space of time. Having read through it, there's an awful lot of information in there that we can digest. I appreciate at the moment that we are just seeking to go out to consultation to allow our partners and our residents to have a look at this and say what they think. But of those 5 recommendations in the report, that first one, it does say an increase of 2.99%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but local authorities can go a lot higher than that. They can go, is it 5.99? So we are not seeking the highest that we would be eligible to request at this stage. And I do torture myself by reading the online comments of Comello's articles when he publishes them in the press. And people say things that quite clearly aren't correct when they say, oh, we're being charged more and more money and the services are being cut. These proposals don't cut any of the statutory services that this authority have to deliver, do they? No. So that's a good thing. So we're not charging the maximum we're not proposing to charge the maximum we're allowed to charge, and we're not cutting any statutory services. And hopefully we'll be keeping some of those discretionary services going through this budget as well. So I think it's a very, very good start, and let's see what the consultation feedback is when we receive it. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries, do you want to come back on those two, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Baker.
Yeah, on the point of the 2.99%, I think I mentioned in my opening remarks that government have given us 3-year settlement and it's almost transferring that burden, because I think 75% they're estimating of our income coming in will be from that local taxation through putting the council tax effectively. But unfortunately, it's capped at 2.99% unless you go out for a referendum. And I think from my last conversation about referendum, there was only one recently in recent times that actually failed completely. I don't know anybody who's going to actually, locally, if you ask them to put up taxes, do we want to put up our council taxes? Obviously, an interesting conversation. Previous governments have assumed and made us do that effectively by taking funding off of us, and that's basically what this government's doing, continue to take funding off of us, and then when you protect services by putting up your council tax. So it's a sneaky way, I think, by governments to fund local councils. But I hope that clarity helps there.
Councillor Baker.
I've been a councillor for 20 years, but this is the first time I've actually been in the cabinet, and this has been a really challenging time for all of us, for all cabinet members, but for all the officers as well. And there are so many issues here. One is the last minute nature of these settlements, which we had just a few days ago. You would never run a business on getting settlements and getting budgets days before you have to go out to a consultation on it. It's absolute nonsense. For fair play, we've now got 3 years of funding, but fair play, yeah, next year it's going down 6%, the year after another 6%, and the year after that another 6%. So £1.4 million is going to be taken from this local authority over the next 3 years. So that's a 6% year on year on year. We can't increase council tax by more than 2.99%. So clearly something has to give. And here we are yet again in another situation where we're looking to try and make savings but protect frontline services. And it really is a juggle. And, I'm all for engagement and consultation. Absolutely right that we do that, and we do it every year. I know we have to do it, but the widest consultation possible, because it will help us from here to setting the budget. It will help inform the decisions that we make. But in the meantime, I know we're all in our different cabinet roles. We're going to be having conversations with officers, looking at different elements of the budget, see what we can do, see what we can cut or not. But none of us got elected to do that in a way. We didn't get elected to want to hammer our local services and reduce the quality of what we deliver. We don't want to do that. We want to sort of grow and invest in our town. And I have to say that I've been amazed how much Cheltenham has been able to do that over the years, despite these ongoing cuts in government support. And hopefully we'll be able to carry on doing the same again with creative accountancy and thinking outside the box. And just carrying on in the mode that we have done, as we did with Paul Jones, and we will do going forward. So I look forward to the consultation, I look forward to the responses, but in the meantime, lots of hard work to do.
Councillor Pinniger.
I did just want to recognise the finance team and how there was tragedy there, and this has been assembled really rapidly by a new team which has been rebuilt very ably by the CEO and the leader, and thank you for that, because it was unexpected, and there has been a lot of activity to make sure we have a good, strong team in place, and that is why we're still being able to produce this in such a short time after the government told us the settlement. And I'm just really pleased we're in a position to do that. I, like everybody, am very concerned about the local government reorganisation and the potential of somewhere between £1 and £2 million over the next couple of years needing to be found from, Gloucestershire, Cheltenham taxpayers or services. There have been rumblings about town councils and, are we going to have to pay more? We're going to have to pay a levy for town councils now. And so people are really, there's not a lot of money out there, and people are really concerned about this. But we do have a below inflation rise of 2.99% on the council tax proposed. And the other thing that I feel about this settlement is that we're almost being punished for being a progressive, business-orientated council. So we've done very well. Fundamentally, we've done very well over the last 20 years with Rowena. I've only been here 5 years. And I feel like our settlement is therefore lower, which is just the way it goes with government, but it does seem so unfair, and we're going to have to use our abilities and intelligence to now try and rebuild and get back to being that successful council that we've been all along. I did want to ask actually, and this is really the question. I've been doing this for 5 years, and in that 5 years, every year we seem to have been cutting like £1.2 million, £500,000, £1.7 million. Every year we've been cutting these out at the budget consultation. And I have no grasp of whether that's normal. Has it been like that since the year 2000, or is all of this since the 2008 crash, or is it from, or is this normal? Thank you.
Councillor Jeffries, answer that one if you can.
Is this normal? I've been in local government since 2010, and I think we've been on a continuing cycle since then of reorganisation and refinancing or redoing our finances. And I think the last government's the blue colour, saw that year on year pretty much, and it seems this is basically a continuation of. So it's austerity, but a Labour austerity, to be clear. So on that particular point, can I follow through some more comments if I can, Leader, if that's okay? Yeah, LGR. My reference to LGR was the strategic nature of it in terms of the government, will decide what the government decides. But they're not going to, they're telling people at the moment they're not going to pay for it, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. So it's just one of those things that's coming down the track. I didn't want to get into the detail per se. Colleagues, thank you all for your comments. I want to be clear, because Kamala's in the room, these aren't cuts. These are about balancing our budget, these figures, okay? We're not looking at cuts, we're looking at balancing the budget figures, because in no other budgets around the world do you have to have a balanced budget. You have a budget, and you either stick that or you don't. So local government financing is quite unique in that respect. So please, for the clarity of the press and those members of the public that may be watching, this is not about cuts to services, this is about balancing the budget figures. And I think it's interesting, yes, we've got a reduction in funding, because yes, there is a presumption we have to put up our council tax. What I find really frustrating is we are a well-run council. People have sat in my position, I'm privileged to have this position, but people have sat in it before me and managed to balance these budgets and invest in our town. And we continually find ways to balance our budgets and invest in our town. The only thing that governments of the day in the last 10, 15 years and moving for the future are doing is limiting our ability to invest in our town. So we can invest a small amount or a lot. And over recent years, it's just been a lot less than we'd like to. I've got no further comments, Leader, but I hope that provides clarity in the areas that colleagues have mentioned, and thank you all for your comments.
You summed up a little bit, but can I just come in with a couple of comments? Actually, one of them, Councillor Pinniger, was in 2002 when I first got elected. We had growth budgets. I remember clearly growth budgets, but we don't have growth budgets anymore, or where we have got growth budgets, they are necessity growth budgets, not perhaps what we would want to do and delivering on our ambition. So, yeah, that's been a very, very long time. And it's one of the reasons I think it's worth reminding ourselves was when I had the finance and assets portfolio, and back in 2016, we said that we can't rely on income plain and simply from council tax. We need to invest. So we went down the road of becoming what I called then a commercial council, with a very, very clear remit that we wouldn't invest anywhere other than within a 5-mile radius of Cheltenham. So everything that is made here stays here. So what's made in Cheltenham stays in Cheltenham, largely. And that was always the ambition we had. But have we not gone down that commercial route of investing in our town, in property, in many different shapes and forms, and having a very diverse property portfolio, we would not be where we are in terms of our budget cuts. And we would, as Peter Jeffries has said, we have a legal obligation. Unlike government, we don't have a licence to print money. We have to, by law, bring in a balanced budget. And in order to do so, we have to look at realigning our priorities rather than actually cutting. We have, over the years, undoubtedly made cuts because we've had to. You can only salami slice for so long, and then you have to say, actually, and it's one of the reasons that we created the trust, because, of course, everything that the trust delivers is non-statutory, so it's discretionary services. So where do you look when you've got hard choices to make? Is you look to the discretionary services, which includes our parks and gardens and the facilities, the play facilities, all of that. So, and we've always done really well at protecting those because we've been of a commercial mindset and, dare I say, not afraid to take some hard decisions. And before we no longer exist as Cheltenham Borough Council, we're going to have to make some more of those very hard decisions. And it's always disappointing, isn't it? Because we have a 3-year settlement on the face of it actually tells us clearly where our trajectory is and our road. But they had promised that we'd get it on the 30th of November, and we waited another 3 weeks for that, hence the delay, I think, and they badged it fairer funding. I don't know if any of you have had an opportunity to actually look at what that means, but it doesn't feel like fairer funding to me when I look at where other authorities have got absolutely enormous increases. It doesn't feel like fairer funding. It does feel a bit like the South West, yet again, has been left behind by the North and London and then the little old South West, as it were. And I don't mean us, I mean the broader region of the South West. We never seem to come off very well of what, and we certainly haven't this time. But my thanks as well to Peter. And, I look forward to all of you scrutinising your budgets and looking for those efficiencies that we're going to have to find, all of us, and then agree them collectively. So I'll hand back to Peter in case there's anything he wants to correct that I've said.
Thank you, Leader. No, I don't think I've got anything else to add. It has been challenging. I just want to put on record my thanks to the finance teams, in fact, the whole leadership team, to be fair, because this has been a very unusual experience to go through and unusual times. So thank you to the leadership team and the finance colleagues. I've got nothing further, Leader. Thank you.
So if I could see a show of hands to approve that this goes out for consultation, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much all. So there isn't any other agenda item other than the usual sort of, does any member, I know we only had Cabinet last week, so, but it's the briefing from Cabinet members. Is there any Cabinet member that wishes to give any sort of update since last week? No? Yes, no, I haven't. Yeah. So the final one is the decisions of Cabinet members, and there were 2 that were made. So, Councillor Jeffries, you made a decision for on St James's Car Park. That was to renew the renewal of the lease at St James's Car Park. Do you?
Yes, Leader. I took the decision to renew the lease at St James's Car Park. Thank you.
And Councillor Baker, there was a contract awarded to Smiths of Gloucester. Your decision?
It was indeed, Leader. This was to basically it's a health and safety driven investment down at the depot to replace a structure with a concrete wall. It doesn't sound very much, but it's a fairly involved project. And the important thing about this is that this is protective of the future. So if in the due course of time that whole operation is moved to a new site, that assembly that we're invested in can be relocated at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. So on that, Section 8, there are no other items that our leaders determined to be urgent and requires a decision. So it just remains for me to say thank you all, Cabinet members, for your contribution through this last year. I hope you all have a very relaxing time, whatever you might be doing over this holiday period. And also my thanks to every single member of Cheltenham Borough Council staff. I hope they also take advantage of a break. There's always somebody working and continuing to work, so we're never completely shut down. So a special thank you to those who will be doing that cover all over the Christmas break, should anything untoward happen. So with that, I will close the meeting.